Hello everyone, greetings from VNR JYOTHI Institute of Engineering and Technology. This is by Manohar Reddy, Department of Cybersecurity, Data Science and AIDS. Today in this session I am going to explain about the network layers in OSI model. So generally we call it as a 7-layer architecture or OSI ISO reference model. So the OSI model is a logical and conceptual model that defines network communication used by the system's open interconnection and communication with other systems. So in order to communicate the systems, one system to another system or multiple systems together, the network communication is very important. So for that communication, the network model is required. That model, that layer architecture, OSI ISO reference model is required. So this OSI model is a logical and conceptual model that defines network communication used by the systems open to interconnection and communication with other systems. This OSI model also defines a logical network and effectively describes the computer packet transfer by using various layers of protocols. So this entire OSI reference model discuss about the each and every layer responsibility, how the data will be transferred from one layer to another layer. This is implemented by the ISO standards. So ISO stands for International Organization of Standardization. International Organization of Standardization. This is called a model for open systems interconnection. This is called as model for open system interconnection and is commonly known as OSI model. It is commonly known as OSI model. So we can call it as OSI model, ISO OSI reference model, network communication model, data communication model. Like this, we can call it as a number of ways. This ISO OSI model is a 7-layer architecture. It defines 7 layers or levels in complete communication system. How each and every layer is communicated, how the sender and receiver can able to communicate it, how the source and destination will be communicated through the data transmission. So here the total 7 layers are architectured. The first layer is what application layer, and second layer is what presentation layer, third layer is what session layer, fourth layer is transport layer, and fifth layer is what network layer, and sixth layer is what data link layer and physical layer. These are all the 7 layers in the ISO OSI reference model. So how each and every layer is communicated and what are the responsibilities of each and every layer will takes with the help of the protocols. We'll continue this session. So the features of OSI model. So what are the features that OSI model can be implemented? The main feature of OSI model is the communication over network is understandable through this OSI model. So each and every layer, how our entire network is understandable through this OSI model. And we see how hardware and software work together. So both hardware layers and software layers, both how work together, can we see in this model. We can understand new technologies as they are developed. So how it is adaptable to the new technologies that have been implemented to access any type of applications, that all can be implemented through this model. And troubleshooting is easier by separating the networks. Troubleshooting is also very easy to separate by separating the networks. And it can be used to compare basic functionalities or relationships on different network. So if you want to compare or comparisons of the networks, different types of networks like LAN, WAN, MANs, like that, we can see the basic functional relationships among those networks. We can see all the functional relationship between among those networks. So these are the features of OSI model, how it is communicating with all the different networks, and how hardware and softwares are work together, and how the new technologies have been adapted, and how the troubleshooting is important by separating the network, and how the comparisons of the functional relationship among the different types of networks. So these are the features of OSI model. And what are the principles of OSI reference model? A layer should be created with different abstraction is needed. So a separate hidden layer is needed, and each layer should perform a well-defined function. Each and every layer should perform a well-defined function. Suppose one layer can create packet, one layer can create frames, one layer can create bits. Like that, each and every layer should perform well-defined function. The function of each layer should be an eye toward defining internationally standardized protocols. So the function of each layer should be an eye towards, that indicates that what it is completely directed towards the protocol responsibilities, how each and every layer functionality is together. And the layer boundaries should be minimize the information flow across the interfaces. The layer boundary should be minimize the information flow across the interfaces. So one layer cannot be create any boundaries to minimize the information flow for another layers. The number of layers should be large enough that distinct function need not to be thrown together in the same layer out of necessity, and small enough that architecture does not become unwieldy. So these are all the different types of principles and features of the OSI model. And now we can see the network layers diagram and how we can call it as the hardware layers and how we can call it as the software layers. So these three, bottom three, network layer, data link layer and physical layer, these three layers are called as hardware layers and lower layers also. And the application layer, presentation layer, session layer, these three are called as software layers and also upper layers. In between these two, so to communicate these two, the heart of OSI is what? Transport layer. The transport layer is the heart layer of the OSI reference model. It communicates both software upper layers and hardware lower layers. So it only communicates between them. So how application layer? It allows access to the internetwork resources or network resources. And the presentation layer, it translates, encrypts and compress the data. Then next forwarding to the session layer. And the session layer establish, manages and terminate the sessions via API, application program interfaces, sockets and window sockets. And the transport layer is what provide reliable process to process message delivery and error delivery from this to this, from this layer to these layers, that is upper layers to lower layers. And the network layer is to move packets from source to destination and the provide internetworking mechanisms also. And the data link layer is to organizing the bits into the frames and to provide the hop to hop delivery. So how each and every hop will be delivering to the destination side. And the physical layer is transmits bits over a medium. So how the medium is communicated to other system and how bits are going to be transferred to the medium. And to provide mechanical and electrical specifications also. And the cables, coaxial cables, fiber cables and wireless hubs, repeaters, all comes under this physical layer. All this comes under the physical layer. Let us discuss about each and every layer responsibilities. So physical layer is the lowest layer of the OSI model. It activates and maintains and deactivates the physical connection. So the main responsibility of the physical layer is what? It maintains and activates and deactivates the physical connection. It is responsible for transmission and reception of unstructured raw data over the network. So it is responsible for what? Transmission and reception of the unstructured raw data or network. And voltages, data rates needed for transmission is defined in this layer. And it converts the digital or analog bits to electrical signals or optical signals also. And data encoding is also done in this layer. These are the physical layer responsibilities. So it converts the digital analog bits into electrical bits, optical bits, and data encoding is also done, and it is responsible for transmission and reception of the structured raw data over a network, and all these the physical layer responsibilities. And the second layer is what? Data link layer. It synchronizes the information which is to be transmitted over the physical layer. The main function of this layer is to make sure data transfer is error free from one node to another node over the physical layer. And the transmitting and receiving data frames sequentially is managed by this layer. So framing is one of the main functionality of this data link layer. So for that we can do character counting, character framing, character stuffing, bit stuffing, all this we discussed in the previous sessions. And this layer sends and accept acknowledgements for frames received and sent respectively. So from the sender side and receiver side, whenever the frames are sending and receiving, the acknowledgements also received. So resending of non-acknowledgements received frames is also handled by this layer. And this layer is established a logical layer between two nodes and also manage the frame traffic control over the networking. And that means a traffic control mechanism, framing mechanism, all under this data link layer, all covered on this data link layer. And third one is what? The network layer. So network layer routes the signal through the different channels from one node to another node. So how the nodes are transferred. So what is the route for transferring the nodes, and what is the shortest path for transferring the destination. It acts as network controller. It manages the subnet traffic. It decides by which route data should take. So the main routing is important. So that routing will be handled by this network layer. And it divides the outgoing messages into packets. It divides entire messages into packets and assembles them incoming packets into the messages for higher levels. So whenever it transfer the packet into whenever it transfer messages into packets, it can converts, and again whenever it receives the incoming packets, and it converts into the messages for higher layers. And the fourth one is what? Transport layer. Transport layer decides if the data transmission should be on parallel path or single path. So how it is taking the direction, parallel path or single path. And functions such as multiplexing, segmentation or splitting on the data are done by this layer only. So multiplexing is combining all them into single one, and segmentation is also doing the same for divisioning, and splitting one into number of units it is dividing. And it receives messages from the session layer above it. It converts the message into smaller units and passes it on to the network layer. So you transfer all the data into the network layer. The transport layer can be very complex depending upon the network requirements it is designed. And transport layer breaks the message data into small units so that they are handled more efficiently by the network layer. So it is dividing all the small units, then it converts into the network, it transmits into the network layer. The next fifth one, session layer. The session layer manages and synchronizes the conversation between two different applications or two different systems. So how it is establishing the connection, how they are transferring the data based on this connection establishment or connection communication. And transfer of data from source to destination. And the session layer streams of data are marked and are resynchronized properly so that the end of the message are not cut prematurely and data loss is avoided. So to do not occur data loss, to do not occur the data inconsistency, we are resynchronized the data into this session layer. And sixth one, presentation layer. Presentation layer takes care the data is sent in such a way that the receiver will understand the information, will be able to use the data. So how it is going to be presented and how it is going to be encrypted, all this covers under this presentation layer. So while receiving the data, the presentation layer transforms the data to be ready for the application layer. So it transforms the data to be ready for the application layer. So languages can be defined different of the two communication systems. Under this condition, presentation layer plays a role of translator, and we can say that translation or converter, it can convert into the required format. It can translate it into the required format. So it performs decompression, data encryption, data conversion, all these things. All these things can be done in the presentation layer. And the seventh layer, application layer. So application layer is the topmost layer. Transferring of files, distributing the results to the users is also done in this layer. So transferring of files and accessing of the different mail services, directory services, network resources, etc. all are the services provided by this application layer. So if you want to access any particular mail applications, mail accessing, all can be done this through application layer only. This layer mainly holds application programs to act upon the received and to be sent data. So the layer mainly holds application programs, all the application programs that you can access, and received the data into the layer. So these are all the 7 layers that can be takes the each and every layer having separate responsibilities with the help of some protocols. So how the protocols will help to this all the layers, we'll see here. The protocols supported at various levels. So in the layer 7, the application layer, the function is what? To allow access to network resources. The protocols are SMTP, HTTP, file transfer protocol, POP and SNMP. These are all the protocols that can be functionality happen in the application layer. In the layer 6, presentation layer, it translates encryption and compress the data. So it looks like it works like a translator, and the protocols for MPEG, ASCH, SSL and TLS, these are all some protocols. And the layer 5 was what? Session layer. So it establish, manage and terminates the session. And the protocols are what? Net bias SAP protocols. And layer 4, transport layer. The transport layer builds the network layer to provide data transport from process on a source machine to destination machine. Uses the TCP and UDP protocols. And layer 3, network protocol, provide the internetworking to move packets from source to destination. So IPv5, IPv6, ICMP, IP secure, ARP, MPLS, all these are all some protocols. And layer 2, data link layer, to organize bits into the frames to provide hope to hope delivery. And these are the protocols: RAPA, PPP, frame relay, ATM, fiber cables. These are all some protocols in the data link layer. And layer 1, physical layer, to transmit bits over a medium to provide mechanical and electrical specifications. We use RS-232, 100 base text and ISDN and 11 Ethernet some protocols. So these are all the protocols that are supported at various levels to communicate each and every layer and transmit the data from one layer to another layer as a sender side and a receiver side. So these are all the different protocols are having the set of rules and regulations to communicating all each and every layer in the OSI model. These are all the different types of protocols and layers that we discussed in this session. I hope all of you understand. Thank you all.